putting sex aside, how does the nurturing of a wife look different than the nurturing of a mother?
That is a great question. The opposite way would be giving him physical affection while he needs that support, whether it's a kiss, rubbing his ear, rubbing his neck, the way that your mother would not rub you. So the one aspect could be he had a rough day at work and all he heard was crap all day. His mom can call him and he's like, yeah, I had a bad day at work. He's not that kid anymore. So more than likely not will not hit the same. Those exact same words his mother is saying on the phone from his significant other with words of encouragement. Like, whoa, that's completely different. And so, and I know what you do for us. And I want you to know that I respect you. I honor you. I this, that, and the other. That versus his mother calling saying, you're a good son, whatever it is, very different. The words of encouragement from my mother will not raise my testosterone. The words of encouragement from my wife 100% will. Women have no idea how powerful they are with their look, with their words, with their essence, with their being, let alone their physical. They don't know. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Couples Development Podcast. I am your co-host, Coach Clark, and I am here with my wife,
Coach Mel, and we are a husband and wife team of relationship coaches. So what do you want to talk about today, husband?
All right. Well, you know what we want to talk about. We're continuing from we're continuing from part one. I called the previous episode these three things that men I guess need to understand for the most part, not all, but for the most part that women would want in a relationship. And so today we're going to talk about what men want, right? Or what men would want in a relationship, right? And so I guess I will start. First and foremost, this might be just this one thing can pretty much cover so many bases. But I think one of the things what's highly underrated, I believe, that women need to understand is how much words of affirmation mean to men. Right. And the thing is, and I don't even blame women for not understanding this because I don't think men actually understand how much words of affirmation mean to them, especially if we're talking about, in our community. Right. Because in our community, it's, with men, you're supposed to be macho and this and, the sex god and all this other stuff. And, I don't eat nothing other than, a sandwich, some sex, and that's it. Right. So, but if you, it's the proof is out there, and there's so many reasons why for it. But I think, I know I'm tying it to a love language, but words of affirmation is something that men, I don't know what a single man would be like, nah, I'm good. I don't need that. Other than men who don't like, and it's not even like a compliment either. Right. Cause I was going to say that because there's some people who don't really like to hear about themselves and don't want, too many compliments, things like that. I'm not even referring to that. Right. It's just him knowing that you notice him doing something for you and you telling him, hey, I saw that and I appreciate that. That like can make a man's week or a month and you have no idea. Right. And a lot of women may or may not know that. I also know that, with every side, there's a toxic side, because I remember there was this conversation I was in on Twitter, which I don't frequent as much for obvious reasons, but where there was a post where a woman was asking, what's one, I think it was like, men, name something that you wish more women knew, or name something that you wish more women did, or something that you never received from a woman. Right. And the original poster, OP, was like surprised at how many responses and quotes she got, because, as always, most women think they're going to be like, toxic things. Oh, who are you as a woman to, that kind of thing. Or, oh, just give me sex and that's it. But interestingly enough, the overwhelming majority of the men took it serious, and they were all just leaving comments, and they were super sad. And a lot of the women were replying saying that this thread, which became a thread, completely messed me up. They were saying how some of them started crying reading these responses because a lot of women did not even know. And the reason why I didn't know it, again, it's not their fault, because again, like I was saying before, who trains us to understand how to deal with our emotions? That it's okay to talk about our emotions. It's okay to talk about how we're feeling outside of like, I want to fight someone or, whatever. Right. And, some of the men were saying things like, that, that my feelings matter, that she truly cares about me, that I make her feel safe, that who I am and as I am is enough for her, that I'm enough. What else? That she trusts me, or things like that. Like they were just saying, all of these things, and that, she enjoys comforting me. She enjoys nurturing me. She enjoys my company, things like that. These are a lot of things that men were saying. And again, in our community. And so a lot of women were like, some women were even asking each other, like, damn, women, what are we doing? Right? Like, this is really bad because again, it's, the hiccups or the errors or the shortcomings of men are very, very well documented. And oftentimes the hurt individuals, who are the men, who are not allowed to express their feelings, or who think aren't allowed to express their feelings or never learn how to, they're just gonna keep their mouth shut and just internalize it. But they're dealing and they're dealing and they're dealing. And you could see that because the numbers don't lie. Go look at self-deletion numbers and percentages, right? And who is less likely to seek for, who's less likely to seek mental health assistance, right? And so, like I said, as the women were reading, a bunch of them were like, "We're so sorry," things like that, and so on and so forth. And then one of the other comments was like, that like she appreciates me, like she values me, that she wants me, that she desires me, that she finds me sexy, that she, I turn her on. These are things I don't hear from, these are men who are saying, in relationships, not in relationships, and things that they have or never heard. Right. And one guy, I remember, he goes, yeah, it's like, what did she say? Yeah, he was mentioning something he did, like basically like one day, the pots and pans were all the way up, stockpiled in the sink, and he went ahead and, after his shift, right, because I think that was her day off, whatever, she went ahead and just like clean all the pots, blah blah blah, whatever it is, and she didn't even say anything, right? And so there's two parts there, and I'll get to his afterwards, but I remember this one reply, it stuck with me. And this woman replied and goes, "Why should I have to give you praise for an everyday task? Like, what's the big deal? Like, oh, you wash some dishes and," right? Mm-hmm. And I can understand. The thing is, I get her, and then I'm going to go back to him. Where he failed there was, babe, when I do things around the house as normal or whatever it looks like, it would mean a lot to me if you would, if you appreciate it, tell me you appreciate it, or tell me you noticed it. Because sometimes, when I'll do something and you don't, it kind of like, it discourages me, or it's an opportunity or a bit I'm looking for to kind of like feel good. And believe it or not, men need that. And when I don't get that from you, I'm not going to get it anywhere else. I'm not going to get it at work. Right. So, and, this is something that you can give me that I would really appreciate you can give. Now, are most men going to say it that way? No. Right. And so, and then the other part with a woman saying, oh, you expect me to, give you praise for washing some dishes. I mean, please, you're supposed to. And again, as toxic as that is, I also understand her, because women are expected to make money, raise kids, wash pans, blah, blah, blah. And what's the big deal? Do it. So I also understand it. So again, they're both coming from places of hurt, right? She's hurt because, well, I'm never appreciated for this. My mother was never appreciated for this. So why should I have to throw a parade for you? Right. And he's like, well, you know, I was thinking about you and I was trying to help and I was trying to do, you know, and you didn't really say anything. And, you know, when men, this is the thing too, I wish men would say, when they say, give me peace, women hear, shut up. Right. And again, I'm not going to speak for most men, but what that piece is that nurturing energy that we often don't have, that feminine energy, that warmth that we're looking for. And that warmth is, you know, after, let's say he just came home, washed the dishes, blah, 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 put everything away, and now he's shower, whatever it is. She comes to him, let's say they're laying in bed or sitting in bed, whatever it is, and she gives him the biggest hug. And she says, babe, I appreciate you so much for washing the dishes. I know you didn't have to do that, even though maybe you should have, whatever it is. But I know you didn't have to do that. I know you're tired from work, but it makes me feel like you were thinking of me when you did that, and that meant so much. And she just hugs him, gives him a nice warm hug, gives him a kiss, whatever it is. I love you and I appreciate you, babe. I do. And that's it. No sex. I mean, of course, do it, but whatever, right? No sex involved, no anything, whatever. But that right there, if I were to, let's say the first 100 women watching this episode, if I were to poll them and ask them, when was the last time you had an experience like that with your man, right? I'm willing to bet the overwhelming majority would not remember the last time they reacted that way, in that sense, to him. But at the same time, and I know I'm talking for a long time, this is a long intro, but at the same time, it's the men's part, right? But at the same time, there are things that she's going to, like we said in the other episode, that she is going to expect from him and want from him, right? And so, so it's kind of an intro, but a long ass intro. So, but the words of affirmation are just, and I can go by examples too if need be, but are so important. So I just kind of like wanted to open it up that way.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one that men would be, so one of the things that you're saying women should understand about men in terms of having a healthy relationship or making her partner feel good or whatever. One of them would be words of affirmation, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I do think that women can do a better job at verbalizing their appreciation toward their partner. I agree with that 100%. And you know, I'm always going to have let's look at the other side too. So I'm going to go ahead and, because I do agree with that. I do think women can do a better job at that, 100%, because men and women are socialized differently. So, so there's that. But I think on what you said about the dishes, like the man who did all of the pots and pans or whatever.
Yeah, it was an example.
Just that, using that one example, and that his partner didn't say anything or show that she appreciated it. I think that there's so much to be said about that. And I think part of what's to be said about that is even language matters, right? So if he goes to his partner and he's feeling some type of way about it, and he says, I was trying to help you out, he's already starting out on a bad foot, because doing the dishes that we use together is not you helping me out, right? So if he approaches it, no, I'm just gonna give you the other side. So language, it matters, right? So there's that. The other thing too is that often when men do housework, we are conditioned that when a man does housework, it is his gift to his partner. So my gift to you, because I love you, is that I'm going to do the laundry, I'm going to vacuum, I'm going to do the dishes, versus on the woman's end, it is her job. So she's just doing her job. She's not gifting him anything. She's just doing her job. Even though they're both doing the same task, it's viewed very differently. So I already think that in itself is already problematic. That aside, partners should verbalize their appreciation for the things that their partner does in general, whether that's, you know, household tasks or giving them reminders about things or checking in on them, saying, babe, how you feeling today? Partners should verbalize their appreciation and give words of affirmation for that. So I do think that women can definitely do a better job at giving their partners words of affirmation. I will also say on the another aspect of that is that it is unfortunately men's jobs to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, babe, this matters to me. Because if he expects it without verbalizing it, that's mind reading. And often you'll hear men say, oh, women expect you to read their minds without them themselves recognizing how much they expect their female partners to read their minds. So it's like, she should know I want to hear that. She's on intentionally not telling me the things I want to hear without recognizing that he's never verbalized to her that, hey, babe, this matters to me. This is important to me. I feel great when you do this. I feel amazing when you do this. It feels very intimate to me when you do this. Like, for him to verbalize that to her so she is aware that, oh, this matters to my husband, because we do live in a society that does say that if you at least cook a few meals and you have sex with him, that's all that he needs. And you already know how I feel about that. So I'm not going to go into it again. But I do think that because of this idea.
I know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
Does our audience know how you feel about that?
Well, it depends how many of our videos they've watched, because I've talked about it before, because I think that we are doing men a huge disservice when we say things like men are simple and women are complex and men are simple. It is not true. They are human beings with human feelings. So for example, the desire to hear someone affirm that you did something well is coming from a feeling space. It's not coming from a logical, rational space, because the logical, rational space is to tell yourself someone had to do the dishes and that's it. And it's good enough. They're washed, they're clean, and that's it. And you don't need anything outside of that. The sheer
and what's that feeling?
Desire to hear the words of affirmations is coming from a feeling space. So when we say things like men are simple and women, what's the feeling? Like for him, he would have to decide that, because it might be different for every man. He might, so for example, there could be a day where he does the dishes and his partner doesn't say anything and he barely registers it because he was already having a good day. He was feeling good. He might have had a good day at work, you know, or his partner might have said other things. And he may not even register the fact that she didn't say, hey, babe, I appreciate you for doing the dishes. On the other hand, if he's having a lower day outside of her, just he had some issue with a client at work or something else is happening with other family members, whatever he's going through, that might make him a little bit more aware of the fact that, see, I just did something here. I did the dishes and she doesn't appreciate me. So that's coming from a feeling based space based on how he's feeling in that moment. So I just think that we are doing men, women, children, and relationships a huge disservice by continuing to say men are simple, women are complex. That is not true in any way, shape, or form. Is that true? Men are human beings just like women are, and just because they are raised and conditioned to suppress their needs and their feelings does not mean they don't have them. So I just wanted to make sure that I say that.
Yeah, no, that's that is correct. And you know, it's also the whole we'll get into that, because the whole men don't really have feelings, only women do type of thing. So so
it's just, I'm just so tired of hearing it, because I'm just so tired of hearing it. It leads to so many negative outcomes for men, for relationships, for families, for children, because men are so stuck in trying to live up to this false idea of what it means to be a man. It's just harmful for everyone involved. I just don't like it.
Yeah. And the pushback would be like, well, what do you know about that? Right. So, but
I didn't know I had to have a penis to know. I didn't know. And maybe I do have one and you don't know.
Oof. Hey.
I'm just saying.
Anyway,
no, but it's just that this idea that you have to be the sex in order to understand the sex is ridiculous. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Humans
can be studied just like every other animal can, like whatever.
Yeah. You know, with that,
dogs should turn to their vet and say, "What the hell do you know?"
Okay.
But go ahead. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's ridiculous. Just imagining that's ridiculous. Let us focus, right? So do you have anything else? I got one more in there. One more in there?
No. I'm good. I'm holding it. I'm good.
Last one?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, the words of affirmation, I'm actually going to tie that into the other things I'm going to mention. But like I said, they're vital, in terms of just the impact it can make on a man's psyche. And of course, they're gonna be like, "Oh, women shouldn't have any." And it's like, okay, got it, bro. You're then why do you want one? Like, then why do you pursue them? Because that whole thing, the whole right wing, red pillish type of talk, where it's man needs to know who he is, and woman just is like, you shouldn't have anything to do with your purpose, and da 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 and whatever. But yeah, it's just important. I mean, if you actually hear a lot of the complaints that a lot of these men have when you're looking online, is that what women don't listen, right? And women, we're not heard. Our experiences matter, and so on and so forth. So in other words, you have feelings, right? And and not only do you have feelings, you want your feelings acknowledged. You want equity per se, in the feeling realm. And so, and it sounds like, again, it's kind of like what I said in the previous episode, where women want this thing in terms of like men being leaders, right? Men want to be leaders. Okay, why are we fighting about this? We know why, but because men have the skewed approach of what leadership is, and women can come across as super critical to men who are just trying their best, whatever, or are they? I don't know. And then so you have the combination of the two. Then you have the static, right? On the other end, the men and hearing certain things, right? Women hear, men are simple, and men don't really have feelings, and and men are just, as long as you do this and this and that, we're good. All we need, the sex and whatever. But at the same time, whenever you look at those threads about men saying the things they wish they heard, you're seeing feelings. You're seeing they have a longing for something that they just never received, whether they didn't receive it from their own mothers or their childhood, and are looking for women to fill that void, which is a completely whole other subject we can talk about. But
can I ask you a question here about that real quick?
Yeah,
because you were talking earlier about men desiring that nurturing when you were talking about words of affirmation. And my question is, putting sex aside, how does the nurturing of a wife look different than the nurturing of a mother?
That is a great question. So it's often, okay. So I think it can come across, I'm going to say two ways. It might be a third. So the first way, it can come across exactly like a mother. Babe, like Method Man said, rub my back and baby say it will be okay. Right. And, they're, whatever, like rub his back, something is going to be all right, encouraging him, blah, blah, blah. Right. The opposite way would be giving him physical affection while he needs that that support, right? Whether it's a kiss, whether it's rubbing his ear, rubbing his neck, things like that. The way that your mother would not rub you, right? There's that sense. So I think your question was.
So you're saying, sorry, honey. So you're saying that the words are the same, but the types of touch is different in terms of the nurturing.
No,
Did I understand that correctly?
The words can be very different. I'm talking about just one aspect, right? So the one aspect could be he had a rough day at work, and he needs to hear something, and all he heard was crap all day, right? His mom can call him, and he's like, I had a bad day at work, and say blah, 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 blah. And he's not that kid anymore. So it more than likely will not hit the same. Those exact same words his mother is saying on the phone that would literally probably not affect him as much, coming from his significant other with words of encouragement, like, whoa, that's completely different. And so, babe, tell me about your day, and what went wrong with it, and like, yeah, you know what, babe, I know how valuable my man is, and da 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 da, and I know how much this means to you, blah, blah, blah. And I know what you do for us. And I want you to know that, you know, I respect you. I honor you. I this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. That versus his mother calling saying, you're a good boy and you're, you know, you're a good son, whatever it is, very different. And it's like the words of encouragement from my mother will not raise my testosterone. The words of encouragement from my wife 100% will. They can motivate me. And that's why I said, you know, before, women have no idea how powerful they are with their words, with their look, with their words, with their essence, with their being, let alone their physical. They don't know. And if they did, you know, if they had enough self-love and self-respect and everything else, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot that women can control if they really wanted to, right? So, you know, so with that said, their words are very powerful. And, you know, a woman being able to tap into that and fully understanding that and knowing can it be manipulative? It can be. It 100% can be. But do I believe there's good manipulation and bad? I mean, well, I think you define, I think I had a...
Well, you're talking about influence versus manipulation, I think.
There you go. Right. Yeah. Right. There you go. Right. So which, you know, some can find, you know, because influence is semantics, one thing, manipulation is like right. So, so yeah, she can influence that man to want to get change, elevate and everything else. And I know some women can say like, oh, and they'll say things like, oh, I don't want to be his mother. It's like, okay, that's cool. But if a man says, well, I don't want to be your daddy, you know, it's a different story. But again, I don't want to say, I don't want to do but what about the women thing? But it is something that we hear quite often. Oh, I shouldn't have to praise him for this or praise him for that, blah, blah, blah. These are things he's supposed to do. And I get that. But if I were to tell every single woman listen to this episode, you adding this into your relationship to a deserving man, not just any man, right? To a deserving man who is actually about it, who is actually reciprocal with, you know, who gives just as much as you give, right? Who is deserving of it. And I were to tell you that your relationship will improve drastically from it. Would it be worth it to you? Would it be, would being able to just open your mouth and just like a simple thing like, babe, like, you're looking good today. I have a feeling you're going to kill it at work today. Right. I mean, I know authenticity and honesty is very big for you, but I think you want your husband to kill it at work today. I think you want your husband to, if he's in sales, to make as many sales as possible. So it's not being inauthentic. It's, you want him to do this, and you telling him that can be like, yeah, because when he, you know, because the male psyche and ego and everything is very, very powerful. So when he walks into that, you know, whatever he does for work and he needs to conquer and do the thing, those words are going to be like, you know what, I got this. And it changes so much. So yeah, so that was a long response to your question. So there is a difference between your wife or your significant other telling you, man, you're amazing, or you're awesome, or you're a good leader, or I admire you, things like that, right? I don't know how many Black men can say they've heard their wives say they admire them, and how much admirate while wanting that admiration from them. I don't know how many. If I go and say, hey, when's the last time your wife said, for the married man I know, she admires you? I'm just going to ask the first 10 married guys I know. Something, if two of them say yes, I'll be surprised, right? At the same time, those women, you know, when was the last time your husband said you're beautiful, right? Or the stereotypical things women want to hear, or whatever, right? I mean, I would say half, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting. I don't know, right? I tell you you're beautiful all the time. So, and not just that, I specifically talk about certain things. So, which is not general, right? But yeah, so that's that. So definitely, there's a huge difference, in my opinion, between your mother telling you, you know, go versus your significant.
Yeah. I think that I understand what you're saying. I think that in terms of what I'm hearing you say is that the man can feel the difference. But I think where we run into a roadblock is that the woman can only judge based on what she sees on the outside. So she can't judge based on his internal experience. So the reason I was asking the question about the difference between, what would nurturing look like differently, the nurturing of a mother versus the nurturing of a wife, was to kind of give women a visualization of what that might look like from her perspective, from her lens. Like if she's watching him, what does it look like? Because he can internally feel the difference, but she can't feel the difference. So the reason I was asking, long story short, is that when a woman feels like she is mothering her partner, it impacts sex and it impacts intimacy. It impacts her sexual attraction to him. So because of that, the man might feel internally that, well, this nurturing feels different to me than the nurturing of my mother, but that doesn't mean his partner is able to see the difference. I'm trying my best to explain that. So what I was saying is that the man can feel internally that the nurturing from his wife feels different than the nurturing from his mother. But in order for us to help the wife visualize the difference, that's why I was asking the question as to what would it look like? Is it the language? Is it the types of touch and things like that? Because often women's nurturing can make her feel like she's mothering her partner. And it can also make her partner feel emasculated. So the line of nurturance is a hard one to kind of balance, to understand the difference between the two, because part of feminine nurturing is protection as well. And we don't talk about that often. For example, she can feel like telling her partner, hey, babe, this might happen if you XYZ, as I'm nurturing my partner. And he may interpret that more so as emasculating, like she doesn't know what I'm doing, or she's trying to tell me what to do. So it's a very fine line. Right. So it's just one of those hard lines to, so for me, that's why I, want to avoid the term nurturing and just say that, many people have the love language of words of affirmation. And, if your partner's primary love language is words of affirmation, that you should definitely, be giving your partner those words of affirmation. I will also give a disclaimer here that there's healthy levels of desiring words of affirmation, and there's also unhealthy levels of desiring words of affirmation. And people have to know the difference between the two, because often the over reliance on words of affirmation can often come from a space of low self-esteem, and using other people, including your partner's, constant reassurance as feeling good about yourself. So what can happen often is, this is men or women, by the way, but what can often happen is when we're not getting those words of affirmation, we feel so bad about ourselves that we will project that it's our partners doing something to us, versus recognizing that we are this reliant on the words of reassurance because of how we feel about ourselves internally, and that it's not coming externally from our partners. Do you understand what I mean? But that's not unique to men. It can be anybody. But I do think that in general, women can do a better job at giving their partners affirming words, for sure. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I would definitely have to agree with that. But, again, like I said, the reason why I'm spending so much time on this is because I think it just covers whatever I'm going to say next. It just runs into that, because it's like, we just want to know that we just want to feel like it's ego. We just want to feel like the man to you. Right. Yeah. And it's why should I have to? I mean, you don't have to. You also don't have to be in a relationship. It's like the same thing with men. Why do I have to, learn this emotion stuff? I'm a man. You don't have to. But if you want a happy wife and you want, a happy partner, this is something you're just gonna have to do. Same thing with women. Believe it or not, women, you actually have responsibilities too, outside of the kids and outside of your job. Your marriage and how you, cater to your man matters. Believe it or not, it does. And the same way it matters to him, in our society, there's a very toxic way. It's almost like our society now, especially with whatever this new feminism is, it's almost like that. You remember that Destiny Child song, Cater to Your Man? It cannot come out today. No. Easy. Cannot do that. Right?
I think it can come out. No, I think it can. I think it can.
Okay. I love how some content creators are like, y'all yes girl women understand that Beyonce is a married woman, and you understand this, right? I don't need no man. Like, yeah, but she's married, she has her kids, and she's anyway, whatever. Anyway, so but they sometimes often right over their head, right? And so I'm saying that because, yeah, believe it or not, there are some things that as a woman that your man is going to require from you, and often, and I know you think all it is sex, and the thing is, it's his fault for that. But you also have to understand that, how does society paint this picture? How does society set everything up? Does society set up men as complicated creatures that, no, men are visual creatures. That's what they say, right? So in other words, yeah, all with men, all you have to do is show them a titty, and it's all good. That's it. That's all you have to do, right? If that's the case, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to find an analogy here. It should be easy to keep a man, or whatever they like to say, right? But we all know how that goes. So, like I was saying, man, it's important. It's important to and women have egos too. And it's like, they act like they don't. It's like, the male, cater to the male ego. Really? And there are a lot of things that women require of us and want of us and expect of us. I remember watching some Steve Harvey episodes. I remember he was saying how his wife will, when they park somewhere, she'll sit in the car and act like she literally is armless. Like, she's like, or when they're walking in somewhere, yeah, and they're walking in somewhere, she'll act like the door cannot, like it's not operational. Just we'll wait for him to open the door for it. And the thing is, I love that, right? I'm a gentleman. I love that crap. That's how she wants to be treated. Now, not every man has to, as a woman, women want. All right, maybe you're not for her, but there are some who do. And it's like, does it sound kind of ridiculous? It sure does, because when you're not with him, you're opening your own door. But when you are with him, you're expecting him to treat you a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But the thing is that sometimes,
sorry, honey. Go ahead. It broke up again. Sorry. Oftentimes I would say women can miss out on the assignment and forget the fact that, oh, wait, I did want this marriage thing. I have this marriage thing. These kids come from this marriage thing. This house comes from this marriage thing. These savings, these trips, this, that, and the other comes from this marriage thing. I need to make sure this marriage thing is getting properly fueled. And I know women can sometimes feel like there's no time for themselves. Like, I got the kids, I got the business, I got the career, I got the, gotta take care of the whatever, in-laws, or, maybe she's the woman that's the leader of the family, the brothers and sisters and everything, where she has to arrange everything. I get it, right? The same can go for him as well too. And so, but at the end of the day, men cannot take days off. They do. And when they do, certain women will let them know about it. And if men take days off, and let's say a woman goes online and says, hey, if every woman is going to be like, girl, leave him. Like, we've been married 10 years. What are you talking about? He forgot. What do you mean by take days off? I don't think what do you mean?
Water. No, meaning, I'll explain to you what I mean. Men are like, in terms of like, take days off, right? Women often say he stops doing the things he used to do, right? And it could be because he did. When you hear that in society, bad husband. And that makes sense. Got it. The men, on the other hand, they'll say the exact same thing. She stopped doing the things she used to do. You don't hear bad wife. What you hear is, well, because this and the work and the babies, and which all can be true, but those are still things he wants. So now, what do you do about it? Well, I have to deal with this. Well, for him, tough, deal with it.
I will say that part of the issue of everything that you were saying is that we've been sold this idea that we can isolate romantic relationships from the rest of society. The reason why I say that is that when you have two people that come into a relationship together, it's not only their individual beliefs that they're battling, but they're also battling societal beliefs as well. Meaning, how should a man show up? What should a man be? How should a woman show up? What should a woman be? So what society tells them they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to interact with each other will also impact their relationship. The reason I'm saying that is you were talking about what was it again? The power thing, that women don't understand their power. And for me, I understand what it means when we talk about women not understanding their power, but I also see it a little bit differently, because to me, the word power means the ability to influence outcomes in the way that in the direction that you want the results to be. So that's what power means to me. Power to me doesn't mean you can get things, not the things that you want or necessarily the things that you want most, but you can get some things. To me, that's not true power. So I feel like when we talk about women having power, I think that we often don't realize that there is still a glass ceiling to the amount of power that we allow women to have, versus for men, there isn't really a glass ceiling for how much power a man can have. I'll explain to you using relationships what I mean by that. If women have power in terms of relationships, that means that they have the power to influence outcomes of relationships in the manner that they desire for those outcomes to show up. Mm-hmm. And so if women are after sex and they're getting sex, then women have power. If women are after bags and shoes and they want bags and shoes, and they have power. But the cap and the glass ceiling of women's power that I'm talking about in terms of using relationships as an example is that what many women are after is relationships and commitment and loyalty and monogamy and marriage, but they do not have the power to influence those outcomes in the way that they desire. Therefore, there is a glass ceiling on their power. So I do understand what we mean when we say women have power, but I think that we're kind of saying it in a very, it stops at a very superficial level, meaning, I will give to women the things that I want to give women, and that equals power. But no, to me, power means I can influence you to give me what I want, whether or not you think I deserve to have that thing or not, but I have the power to influence this outcome. That's what power means to me. I got a little bit off topic there, but I just wanted to say that. But when we're talking about something like words of affirmation, we have to also talk about how societal beliefs. So when we're talking about a relationship between a man and a woman, the societal belief, that unconscious belief that both men and women, because of patriarchy, can have that the man is superior and the woman is inferior. I think that can also impact women's willingness to give their partner words of affirmation, because society has already established that he is greater than you. Mm. So it's kind of like when you and the man have already this idea that he is greater, and you're telling her to willingly make him even greater, it's going to impact their dynamic in that relationship. So I think that women do want to give their partners those words of affirmation, but we sometimes don't recognize how much societal beliefs and systems can impact romantic relationships. So, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I hear that. I agree 100%. And I get that, but at the end of the day, it's like me, what we said before in a previous episode where I was saying how men aren't really in society taught how to deal with their emotions, and yet women still have this desire. Yeah. And if men want to improve their relationships, they need to understand emotions, emotional intelligence from a standpoint from a leader. You need to understand these are the books they should be reading, right? It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was saying is like
it's a dynamic. I agree with the recreational companionship. And you already slightly mentioned this. I do think part of the issue is that, men can easily recognize that women want men to interact with them like they're their girlfriends. And men can easily recognize why that's a very hard ask for a man, But I think that they have a harder time recognizing that expecting your female partner, unless she's really into whatever you're into as well, whether it's the comic books or the sports, whatever it may be, that chances are she's not going to interact with you doing that recreational thing in the same way your friends would, your male friends would. She's going to interact with you in a very female way. And that, what I mean by that is she's probably going to talk a lot through the thing that you're watching or through the thing that you're doing. She's probably going to ask a lot of questions. And as you were saying, often men misinterpret that as a bad thing. That is her attempt to connect with you, because she can't connect with you just physically being next to you. She just can't. She doesn't have the ability. She just can't. The way that she's connecting with you is through conversation. And it can be really hard because especially if we use an example like sports, when men are watching sports, they get so laser focused on it. They barely hear anything, outside of them, that sometimes another person would have to say something multiple times before he's even able to hear it. So just something like that can be, hard for couples to navigate, because she can be like, oh yeah, I want to do this thing with my man or whatever. And she's sitting there and she's talking, she's asking questions. She's like, oh, da, da, da. And he's like, oh my God, I just wish you would just watch the game. You understand what I'm saying? So then it turns it into a negative experience. So I do think that women, again, should, do things that her man enjoys doing. But at the end of that, I also think that he needs to recognize that that is her making an effort to come into his world, and that when you are going into another person's world, often there are certain things that you are ignorant about, that he has to be willing to recognize that she's not going to do this perfectly the way that he wants it to be done, that she's going to show her interest in her own way, and not to kind of like just swat that down like it's not good enough. Do you understand what I'm saying? But nevertheless, I do agree that, she should give him that recreational companionship, because that does matter to him. But I'm going to go a little bit off topic slightly here. I think that part of the issue why relationships are so hard now is that we have put so much weight and so much pressure on intimate relationships that are just really, really hard to sustain. Like, the reason why I'm saying that is because, before we had what would be called female spaces, where women would congregate and talk and do female things. And then we had male spaces where men would congregate and talk and do male things. And they would get that recreational companionship in that way. Like, the community would kind of, make up for the parts that were not in their intimate relationship. But society has progressed so much that just the idea of having female only spaces or male only spaces seems sexist or misogynist or wrong or cruel or whatever, that people no longer have that. Like, even when I go to get my nails done, often you'll see so many men in there. Sometimes you can just kind of feel the women seething, like, you're taking up a seat, like, get out of here. Like, you're holding up all the manicurists. Like, you can almost feel their annoyance. Even though women do want men to, get manicures and keep their nails clean, I can imagine that sometimes in their minds, they're hoping that their barber would kind of hire a manicurist so he can go over there and not take up all the, the seats in the nail salon. But the only reason I'm saying that is because we've put so much pressure on couples to figure out how to be everything for each other. That it's just gotten really, really hard for people. I just, it just has. I'm not that it was easy before, because I don't think it was. I'm just saying that they had different problems before. And now we have created new problems. I think that people like to just get into it and it never goes anywhere, because there's no way you're going to figure out which one came first, usually the chicken or the egg. And so spending time trying to figure out if it's the chicken or the egg is really a waste of time. But the only thing that I would say, if I was to address the chicken or the egg, would be if we go to the beginning of a relationship, what comes first, the sex or the emotional, then it can kind of give us a little bit of insight. If we truly want to dive into if we really want to try to attempt to see which one came first, I would say, okay, let's backtrack to the beginning of the relationship. So meaning, for most people, what comes first is usually the talking and the emotional before the sex. For most people, it's not, we bang first, we have sex first, and then from that comes the emotional and the talking. It's usually vice versa. So if I tried to say which one is first, the chicken or the egg, I would say his part would come first, solely if we go backward. From the beginning of a relationship, them talking to each other had to come first. Them emotionally connecting type of way had to come first. And then the sex came after that. So the sex was the, the effect or whatever you want to call it. after that if I attempted to do that, and that would continue to play out within the relationship. That would just be me attempting to say, okay, if we picked which one came first, I would just go based on how the relationship began. In the beginning, what came first, the talking, the emotions, or did the sex come first? Like that's just what I would do. I don't know. I think that women can do a much better job at giving their partners words of affirmation, the recreational companionship, spending time with him, doing the things that he enjoys doing, and the physical intimacy. The sex is a little bit harder for me to say go to sex, because by sex I just mean penetration, but I do think that they can do a better job at the physical intimacy, the touches, the kisses, the hugs, and things like that. The sex is another topic when we're talking about penetration, so I'm going to leave that to the side, but I do agree 100% that the words of affirmation, the physical touch, and the recreational companionship, that women can do a better job at keeping those things consistent in their relationships with their partners. I'll say one last thing here is that it's really, when it comes to relationships, I think a huge part of the issue when we're talking about like power dynamics, I'm just going to say this in closing a little bit, because even when we ask a question like the chicken or the egg, that's just like a power dynamic thing. Well, you did, what came first? What you did, what I did, who's to blame? It's all that crap, right? That people like to do. It's just, what does it serve them? Who knows? But they just can't stop doing it. But I will say that what a bit of a solution to getting your relationship out of that power dynamic trap of who's to blame, who came first, whose fault, whatever, is to, so for example, if I use us as an example, we are Christian. So because of that, we are believers. So this is our point of reference, but if a couple are not believers, they can also use a different point. So I'm just going to use this to explain what I mean. I'm just going to use us to explain what I mean. So if you make a triangle like this, right? You make a triangle on this corner, right? Here, at this angle, you have the woman. On the other angle, you have the man. And at the top, you have God, right? So the reason why God is at the top is that as the man and the woman get closer to God, they both naturally get closer to each other. So as they travel up the triangle and each person is trying their best and doing their work and doing their part to get closer to God, they are also, the plus to that is that they're getting closer to each other, because as they go up this way, they're getting closer and closer to each other. So people that are not believers, my question would be, okay, what is at the peak, at the top of your relationship? Whatever that is, whether it's a financial goal or a happiness goal or whatever that may be for you, what comes above you as an individual, if you're understanding what I'm saying. Because once you figure out what that top is, then as both of you do your part, your work, and your ownership in getting closer and closer to whatever that may be that you're both reaching toward, you'll naturally get closer to each other. That way you're removing the blame, you're removing the chicken or the egg, which comes first, because each person is taking responsibility and their ownership to work closer to that peak. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I just wanted to make sure that I put that there so that we can kind of burst and break that chicken or the egg thing that couples can often get really stuck in.